Here's Biden. He tweets out, as residents of Hawaii mourn the loss of life and devastation taking place across their beautiful home, we mourn with them. Like I've said, not only our prayers are with those impacted, but every asset we have will be available to them. Here's the latest. 1, FEMA's temporary sheltering assistance is now available for residents who are displaced from their homes by the wildfires, allowing survivors to shelter in hotels or motels temporarily as they develop long-term housing plans. 2, we're laser focused on getting aid to survivors, including critical needs assistance. A one-time $700 payment per household, offering relief during an unimaginably difficult time. We have staff on the ground dedicated to helping survivors navigate the registration process. So what are your thoughts on this one-time payment?
I'm gonna let Kahala speak to it because unsheltered folks aren't getting it if it's like per household, and immigrants, and like if you're undocumented, if you're what the migrant workers that they exploited, like you're not getting this, and you can take it from there, Kahala.
Yeah, this is typical of what we've seen with these kinds of centrist arguments that it's a drop in the bucket, and I'll be honest, on the front lines, we don't see that. We don't see that coming in. What we do see are folks from all sorts of different backgrounds coming in and just volunteering and helping. What you'll hear a lot at the front lines are folks believing in just community, and realizing that all the shit that Kanaka Maoli have had to deal with, including white supremacy, capitalist degradation of our lands and whatnot. Folks are realizing that, oh, wow, Hawaiians, you have networks, you organize really well in these kinds of situations, kind of like on Mauna Kea or Haleakala. And so I'm not an American, so I can say this. I don't think the government will be there in any capacity, even when they're promising these kinds of, small remittance packages. And what I do believe in, though, is the power of Kanaka Maoli and our allies, our comrades, and people who are there with us, fighting for us, with some of them having also lost everything in the fire. And that's inspiring. It's something that I've been really thinking about over the past couple of days.
Yeah, and I'll add that like government can be a force for good when it's like unmoored from like corporate influence and certain influences. It's just a really unique and paradoxical relationship between like the federal government and the state government and like communities on the ground here. And there's a lack of trust right now, even in receiving aid from FEMA and the Red Cross. And I think what's vital right now is for us to make sure that when there's outreach happening, that it's like from community to community. So rather than looking at it through the colonial lens of like helping people, we're like empowering them by actually going to the ground and being like, here's like what you got to know about FEMA, here's what you got to know about insurance claims. And I'm going there right now. We're going to like organize people at all the different hubs that Red Cross didn't set up, the community set up, to actually go and do these wellness checks themselves, and then compile that and then use that data to actually address needs as like in the long run, but also build power. So maybe 2 years from now, we have 200 people that we can, and like 20 community leaders that can mobilize 200 people to build homes. The next day, go to the council, present a community-run master plan for development. Like that's the ultimate goal. And it's like everything we need to be doing is with an eye on power. We call it ho'omana here in Hawaii. Like we should be power hungry in a way, not in the colonial way where it's a power over, but power with and power for. And that's like why we created this like Hawaii recovery fund. So because it's like right now it's all about charity. But we know what happens. Like once the acute trauma is gone, the cameras leave. It's tough. We demobilize, and we're waiting for like the next shoe to drop. But really, we are the purveyors of a better world, and we gotta. It's like to hit that light switch, especially in like a low income person or like a Kanaka Maoli's mind, when you've been told your whole life that you're not good enough, to be like, okay, you'll protect your community, but can you actually have your hands on levers of power? Like to get them there is hard. Like that's the soup to nuts organizing that that we're charged to do in this moment.
And I want to see you to show you a clip of Biden to get your reaction to this, where he's talking about declaring our climate emergency.
Called climate change a code red for humanity. The World Health Organization said it will cause an additional 250,000 deaths a year starting in 2030. Are you prepared to declare a national emergency with respect to climate change?
We've already done that. We've conserved more land. We've we've rejoined the Paris Climate Accord. We've passed a $368 billion climate control facility. We're moving. It is the existential threat to humanity.
So you've already declared that national emergency?
Practically speaking, yes.
Yeah, I mean, remember when Democrats used to talk about, I believe in science?
Yeah.
Like, this is climate denial. What Biden has done so far was more than other presidents, but it's only because the movement was fed up and we rose up in ways that we haven't in the past. And it wasn't nearly enough. The Inflation Reduction Act had a lot of provisions in there that actually worsened inequality, that actually left low-income people of color worse off. So I think in terms of decarbonization, like maybe it'll get us closer to 3 degrees, 4 degrees, like 3.5 degrees warming compared to pre-industrial levels. That's still catastrophic. That's still the threat of the kid that's behind me. When he's my age, he might not have running water. His whole town might be burnt. Like, what this disaster showed me. I do this work for a living, this climate stuff. I do this full time. And I still talk about climate like how I just did 10 years from now, whatever. But like, the urgency is what happened in Lahaina could happen to any of us. It could happen to your community, Katie, like the schools your kids go to, the church you pray in, the grocery store you shop could be reduced to ashes tonight while you sleep. Like, that's the urgency of this crisis. So to say that you practically done something is insulting to the legacies of all who perished in this fire. And anything less at this point than like $1 trillion a year from the US government is just unacceptable, because morally, just how much we contribute, all the main companies that are producing over 70% of the carbon pollution today originate from the US. So like, like to pass the buck at this point when you did the bare minimum is anti-science, and it's outright climate denial.
Yeah. Kahala, what about you? Do you have any reaction to that?
Yeah, I mean, I kind of want to get angry, but part of me is also just really desensitized to anything coming out of this establishment at the moment. But I hear what Kaniela is saying, definitely, as somebody who's been working on that. The sad part, though, is that despite these images of real consequences of climate change, sea level rise, all the things, despite all of that, you still have that one fucking tourist who's going out on the boats, on the tour boats, to like go see the turtles while everything behind them is completely ruined, that mentality, that's not rare, that's very common. And I wish I could say, I want to hope that folks aren't going to be that way all the time, that they're going to have a lot more compassion and empathy, and more importantly, do something about this in their own communities that they're accountable to. And then the Rolex watch, so it's a lot of feels, it's a lot of re-traumatizations. What's helped me, though, is talking with those who are on the ground, talking with those who are supporting us from the other islands, and just reminding them of whatever happens, we're here for each other. Nobody saves us but us, right? And that power that comes from the community, when we recognize it, we recognize each other, I think that's worth a lot more than any kind of recognition or acknowledgement from the establishment. Though they need to do their shit. I'll be real about that too.
Yeah, I mean, I would love to just do like on the ground work towards like sovereignty, but like, what's a sovereign nation if the whole Hawaii is burned to the ground and we don't have running water? Like, that's the severity of this crisis. And unfortunately, the only institution that's big enough to solve it in terms of the scale and scope of the crisis is the federal government. So I gotta play that game, I feel like,
Yeah.
or like, what am I doing? But also I gotta stay rooted in local organizing, because when I don't, I just like crumble. So that's why I'm like, we're setting up these hubs, we're doing the wellness checks, and we have an eye for like the long-term power building in this project.